The true measure of a man is not his character or his relationships or his bank account, but the depth of his squat. Just kidding. But really though, how are your ankles doing? If you're here, they probably need some work. The ankles have been a journey for me. After playing basketball for years and spraining my ankles and wrapping my feet up really tight, when I first started strength training, I could barely get my hips down to parallel. It's been a journey, but I've been able to greatly improve the functionality of my ankles, and with that, my physical capabilities and athleticism have also improved. The feet and ankles are your first line of contact with the ground, so improving them opens up a lot of freedom of movement. I do find with a lot of people they can be very stubborn, and there's no reason why you can't work on your ankles in some capacity every single day. The more you give your ankles new stimulus and reason to change, the more likely they will change. And if you're super serious about making change in your ankles as well as all of your lower body, check out Move Strong Now, where all our members are unlocking more mobility on the daily. Okay, last thing, go barefoot more. That'll help. We begin with our ankle stretches, and if you have really tight calves and tight feet and ankles, these are going to be great for you. This is the standing ankle lean stretch, and I definitely just made that up, but you can replicate this on a step or if you have access to a slant board. With your toes elevated and your knees straight, rock your hips forward in front of your toes. So you can see I move my hips as close to the wall here as possible. I hold for a moment and then I release. Now if both feet is a little bit too challenging, or you want to work on one ankle at a time, then just elevate the toes of one foot and use your other foot to help propel your hips forward. I recommend doing 10 repetitions, and on your final rep, hold for 10 to 30 seconds in the stretched position. We can now move on to stretching the front part of the ankle and lower leg and feet by sitting on your knees folded. There's no special directions here. If this is challenging for you, then you simply just need to spend more time doing it. In the beginning stages, the ankles and knees might be screaming at you. Try to just slow down your breath and sit with the stretch. Put a timer on for 30 seconds, and as you keep training it, see if you can work your way up to being able to sit here for multiple minutes. Now, if it is way too intense on your ankles and knees, place a pillow between your hips and the heel of your foot. And for you guys that want to make this more challenging and get an even deeper stretch, you can elevate your feet onto a pillow. This will increase the amount of plantar flexion at the ankle and will result in a big stretch. And lastly, spend some time sitting on your knees with your toes dug into the ground. Attempt to keep your heels and toes touching. This will put a great stretch on the bottom of the feet, and this one can be truly humbling. Try to spend around 30 to 60 seconds in this position. Next is a patterning exercise. We use this to ensure that the ankle is moving correctly. Stand with your feet about shoulder width. Establish the arch in one foot and then pick the other foot up. Reach the other foot as far forward as possible and then come back and alternate. You're attempting to reach as far forward through using your ankle's dorsiflexion without letting the arch collapse. This simple movement teaches you to use the ankle correctly, and it allows you to access all of the flexibility that you have. If you can't do this simple drill, then there's no way that you'll be able to squat down with heavy load on your back or do a single leg squat correctly. You need to be able to do this basic movement before we can move on to more complexity. Now we move on to some strengthening exercises, starting with the shin raise. For the shin raise, lean against a wall. Place your feet out in front of you a comfortable distance and then lift your toes to your knees. Make sure to keep your knees completely straight. I find it helpful to really squeeze my quad. Try to pull your toes up even further than you think your limit is. Pause at the top of each rep for 2 seconds. To make this more challenging, move your feet further away from the wall. The further you go from the wall, the more of a challenge this will be on the front of your shins to lift your toes up. I recommend doing 10 to 15 reps, and on the last rep, hold for 10 seconds. Next, we have the classic calf raise. Make sure to elevate your toes. This makes the ankle go through more range of motion and makes this strengthening movement also a stretch. Don't just go through the motions. At the top of each rep, pretend that you're jumping off the ground and then lower yourself down under control. I like to squeeze my quads and my butt to make my whole chain fire. Pause for 2 seconds at the top and bottom of each repetition. And as soon as you're ready, I recommend switching to a single leg calf raise. This will be far more challenging as now you're lifting against gravity with only one leg, and obviously you'll get even better results from this. I recommend doing 10 to 15 repetitions if you're doing single leg, and 20 to 25 repetitions if you're doing both legs. The reason that you may have lost some of your ankle strength and flexibility is because you didn't use it enough. So these exercises will ensure that you're using and strengthening the ankle through full range of motion. We begin with simply sitting in the squat position. To sit in a deep squat position requires a healthy amount of ankle range of motion, but this also acts as a stretch for our ankles as well. Spending time down here will help increase the ability of the ankle over time. You really don't need to do anything too fancy here. Sit down and spend some time. Make a practice of sitting down in the squat to look at your phone, or to read a book, or to eat anything. Now, if you're having a lot of trouble sitting down deep, then you can simply elevate your heels. So here I use a couple books to prop my heels up a couple inches, and for most people this will make your squat much deeper and make it accessible if you're having a lot of trouble sitting down into this position. Over time, from sitting in the squat and doing all the other exercises in this video, you'll be able to reduce the amount of elevation that you need until your heels are on the ground. And as you get more and more comfortable in the squat, you can start to play around down here. You can move one knee forward at a time, almost the same as the patterning exercise that we did previously. Be aware of how things feel and see if you can maintain the arch in your foot. A movement that I love, that is a big part of my strength and mobility program, Move Strong Now, is the split squat. I think the split squat is essential for lower body health. You assume a split position and drive one knee forward, trying to keep the back knee straight, keeping that torso upright. Notice how far I push my knee forward over my knee. This is active ankle dorsiflexion. Of course, the split squat is a phenomenal exercise, but you can also just use it as a position to stretch the front ankle and back hip. If you're not able to get that front knee forward very far, you'll benefit from elevating the front foot. This gives you some assistance in range of motion, so you can start training that knee to go in front of the toe. This is an exercise that greatly helped me increase all of the mobility of my lower body. Once again, it's in Move Strong Now. You know what? Actually, all these exercises are in Move Strong Now. Up until now, we've only trained the ankle front and back, but it has the ability to move sideways as well. I find the best way to train the inversion and eversion of the ankle is actually through hip rotation. So as you can see here, I support myself in a crab-like position. I then rotate the knee out and then in. Now notice what my ankle does. It rotates with the knee and the hip. This starts conditioning it to be able to invert and evert along with the rest of the chain of the lower body. And after you've spent some time building up some tolerance here, you can move to the squat position. This will be much more demanding throughout the chain because now you're supporting yourself through your lower body. I call this the bulletproofing section because this will really prepare the ankle, knee, and hip for anything that comes along while you're moving. Guys, have fun unlocking those ankles. It's a really rewarding journey. If you want to rock a Strength Side t-shirt, highly different, there's a link in the description. Follow us on Instagram. It's at @TheStrengthSide. Do all the stuff, you know, the YouTube stuff, the likes, the subscribes, all that stuff. I appreciate you as always.